Good morning, kids! This is Teacher Grace, your teacher in Science Grade 5. Now, we will talk about the Quarter 2, Module 6. The main objectives is to discuss the interaction among living and non-living things in estuaries and intertidal zone. Specifically, we have a sub-objective. First is to identify the living organism and the role that live in estuaries and intertidal zone. Second is to describe the importance of estuaries and intertidal zone. And third is explain the interaction among living and non-living organisms in estuaries and intertidal zone. Are you ready, kids, for our new lesson today? Before we proceed our lesson, let us discuss the unlocking of difficulties. First is ecosystem. It is the community of organisms with their physical environment. Second is the estuary. The nurseries of the sea is where fresh water from river meet with salt water or seawater is called brackish water. Third is intertidal zone, which is always exposed in low tide and high tide, with the land can be sandy, rocky, or covered with mud flat. Look at this picture. Have you even been to these places? In Davao River, Samal Island, Camigan Island, and Lubbock River. How can you describe them? Yes, definitely. The oceans and river. Yep, there are parts that cover with trees. Try to look closer with those. Where the water goes? Yes, it goes to the ocean. And this area is called estuary. What is estuary? Estuary is the area where seawater meets the fresh water from the river. It is also a home to various kinds of animals. The area is said to have brackish water, which means they have a mixture of salt water and fresh water. Because of this unique characteristic, some organisms choose to reproduce in this area. For such reasons, this area is also called as nurseries of the seas. The Philippines, is being an archipelago, is surrounded by the sea and ocean. Because of this, the Philippines rich in coastal areas. These are affected by the rising and receiving tides. These areas are called intertidal zone, which are homes of different kinds of marine animals and birds. As you observe, the estuaries are home to unique plants and animals communities that have adapted to brackish water. Brackish means salt water combined with fresh water, it becomes brackish water or salty fresh with mix. Now, let us talk about biotic factor. Biotic factor are living components in an ecosystem. These include all the plants, animals, and microorganisms found in estuaries, such as mangrove trees, migratory birds, and small fish. Biotic factors is an ecosystem such as intertidal zone, and estuaries are composed of all plants, animals, and microorganisms living in it. These organisms live in different habitats found in intertidal zone and estuaries. This includes coral reefs, salt marshes, mudflats, rock shores, and mangroves forests. Coral reefs provide shelter to thousands of fish. The corals themselves are animals that feed on plankton. These corals form reefs that protect the coast from strong waves and currents. Salt marshes are areas that are filled with seawater during high tides and drained during low tide. Organisms found in salt marshes are clams, mussels, oysters, crabs, snails, and shrimps. Plants found in salt marshes are seagrasses and other plants that are tolerant of salt water. Mudflats or tidal flats are areas where mud from the seas or river is deposited. They are usually the areas of migratory birds, crabs, sand dollars, mussels, clams, mollusks, shellfish, and some fish. Algae and sea lettuce provides food for the herbivores in this area. Rocky shores are areas where solid rocks are found. Animals found in the rocky shores are plankton, brittle stars, sea stars, hermit crab, barnacles, limpet, mollusks, periwinkle, sugar crabs, shrimp, and prawns. Mangrove forests are areas that are filled with mangrove trees. These trees have adapted the salt water. Mangrove forests are breeding grounds for different kinds of fishes and shellfish. Intertidal zone are areas where are constantly exposed to the changing tides. They provide homes to many kinds of plants and animals. The daily changes in the tides play a major role to the life of living things in this area. The intertidal zone, which is also known as the foreshore or seashore, is the area that is above water level at low tide and underwater if it is high tide. Of course, when we say abiotic factors and non-living organism or non-living factors in the environment, the abiotic factors that greatly affect the organism in estuaries includes waves, salinity, temperature, amount of sunlight, and type of soil. Now, let's talk about the factors. First factor is the waves. Refers at the amount of the surface of the water. These are the strong forces that organism must learn to live with. Kelp, a kind of algae, has strong root-like structure that attach itself to rocks to keep it from being carried away from the waves. Second is salinity. Refers to the amount of salt in water. The combination of seawater and fresh water in estuaries is called brackish water. Mangroves and blue crabs have adjusted well to the constantly changing salinity of water due to the non-stop flow of fresh water and salt water through the estuary. Third, temperature. Refers to the level of hotness and coldness of the water. Temperature differ because of the tides and amount of sunlight. Some organisms use plants like mangroves to keep themselves concealed from direct sunlight or away from the coldness of the water. Last is the type of soil. Varies in the estuaries depending on the strength of waves and kinds of rocks present in the area. Some areas are full of rocks, sand, pebbles, or clay. The top soil layer found in the estuaries is composed mostly of peat or salt crust. Salt can be found within the soil, which can be acidic, posing problems to the survival of plant life. Now, let's go to our first activity, entitled, Where Do I Live? The direction, identify which environment the living things listed in the box belong. In the box, we can see corals, mangroves, clams, starfish, shrimp, sea urchin, jellyfish, small fish, kelp, and crabs. Now, kids, you can comment down below where these living things belong, in estuaries or intertidal zone. I will give you 15 seconds. In 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the times is up. Kids, try to check your answer. Okay, in estuary, the living things that belongs is mangroves, clams, shrimp, small fish, and crabs. An intertidal zone, the living things that belong, corals, starfish, sea urchin, jellyfish, and kelp. Who get the correct answer? I will give you a 5 stars. Kids, are you ready for our science terrific quiz? The direction is, examine the illustration where the river flows and meets the sea, creating a flourishing estuarine ecosystem. List down at least 5 biotic and 5 biotic factors that you can find in this picture. I will give you 15 seconds. You can comment down below your answer. Remember, 5 biotic and 5 abiotic. Are you ready, kids? In 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I am sure that you already know the answer. Okay, now I will post the answer. What did you see on this picture? When we say biotic, we can see the birds, the fish, the crabs, the trees or plants, grass, and the humans. If you answer all of that, you have a 5 points. In abiotic, we have temperature, rocks, air or wind, log, land or soil, and water. I'm sure you already know about the biotic and abiotic. How is the interaction of organisms in estuaries and intertidal zone? The living things in any ecosystem consist of producer, consumers, and decomposer. Organisms require energy to perform life activities. The energy and the nutrients are transferred from the producer to decomposers.
This is how the energy from the sun and nutrients are transferred from one animal to another.
In the living things in any ecosystem consist of the producers, consumers, and decomposers.
organism required energy to perform life activities. The energy and nutrients are transferred from the producers to decomposers. Producers are green plants, algae, or microorganisms that are capable of making their own food. They make their own food by converting the energy from the sun into chemical energy. They provide energy and nutrients to other organisms. Consumers get their energy by feeding on plants and other organisms. Therefore, all animals are consumers. Primary consumers or herbivores are the organisms that eat only plants. Secondary consumers are the carnivores that eat herbivores. Tertiary consumers are the carnivores that eat other carnivores. Omnivores are the animals like human that eat both plants and animals. Decomposers get energy by breaking down dead organisms and their waste. When they down these dead organisms and waste, nutrients from them are returned to the environment. These nutrients are needed by plants for their growth and development. Example of decomposers are worm, fungi, and bacteria. Try to look these videos. Food chain is a series of organisms feeding on another organism, and it always starts with producer. Food web, the interlink of food chain that form a web. It contains two or more food chain. So kids, let us answer your assessment. Direction. Choose the letter of the best answer. Number 1. Which among living organisms live in estuary? A. Mangrove, seagrass, fish, and crabs. B. Algae, fish, chicken, and snail. C. Bacteria, plankton, shellfish, cat. Or D. Alligator, snake, snail, crabs. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the right answer is letter A. Number 2. Which among the living organisms live in intertidal zone? A. Fish, swan, crabs, shrimp. B. Limpet, cat, duck, mussels. C. Green algae, sponges, anemones, fish. Or D. Sea star, fish, dog, cow. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the right answer is letter C. Number 3. It is the community of organisms with their physical environment. A. Ecosystem. B. Estuaries. C. Intertidal zone. D. Salinity. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the right answer is letter A. Number 4. Estuaries is called blank. A. Nurseries of the sea. B. Nurseries of the water. C. Nurseries of the whale. Or D. Nurseries of the shark. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the right answer it is letter A. Number 5. What areas which are always exposed in low and high tide? A. Ecosystem. B. Estuary. C. Intertidal zone. Or D. Mangrove. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the right answer is letter C. B. Direction. Arrange the feeding relationship between the different animals that live in estuary and intertidal zone. Number 1. Fish, seaweeds, shorebirds. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the right answer it is seaweeds, fish, and shorebirds. Very good, kids. Number 2. snail, algae, sea anemone, and shore crabs. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the right answer, it is algae, sea anemone, snail, and shore crabs. Number 3, mangrove, small fish, birds, and crabs. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the right answer, it is mangrove, small fish, crabs, and birds. Congratulations, kids, for your job well done. Now, let's go to your assignment. Draw an example of food chain and food web based on the feeding relationship in estuaries and intertidal zone. I know, kids, kaya nyo itong gawin sa bahay. So do not forget to submit your assignment in the next meeting. Bye-bye! Thank you!